Today I'm going to show you how you can take your music from this to this. Now this is my foolproof way on how to master your songs to sound professional and to be ready for release. Now if you're not 100% sure on what mastering is, it basically gives your mix that final polished sound and makes sure it sounds great on any device. Obviously that's going to be super important on whatever music you're playing, especially if it's in the electronic genre, because it's going to get played on a wide range of sound system, from playing it out of your iPhone speaker to playing it in live venues on big club systems. So mastering is really important in making sure it sounds good across all systems. Now mastering every track is going to be different every time, but the system is pretty much the same no matter what genre you're making. I personally make a lot of different genres, such as like dance music, drum and bass, tech house, rap music, pop music. And this method that I'm going to show you today, it works on all of them. You just have to make little adjustments depending on what song it is. Now you might not have all the plugins that I'm going to use today, but there's always going to be some stock plugin alternatives or some cheap or free alternatives out there to what I'm going to show you today. So I'm going to be explaining each thing that I use today, so then you can find an alternative and you'll be able to take the same techniques that I've used and use them on whatever you're using. So don't worry if you haven't got the exact same plugins that I've got. That said, I've tried a lot of different plugins, and the plugins that I'm going to be using today I do feel are the best about. So if you want to take notes throughout the video of what I'm using and get them yourselves, then feel free to do so. The first thing you want to consider when mastering is you can't have a good master without having a good mix. So for me, what I feel makes a good mix before going into a master is making sure everything's level. Obviously, you're going to have some instruments louder than others, depending on, creatively what you're going for. But some key things, such as having like your kick at the same level as your bass, so that them two are nice and level, and also your mids and your vocals and everything sat nicely in the mix. That's going to help mastering a lot, and it's going to ensure that the final product is at its best. Now, looking at my project here, a lot of people when it comes to mastering will say that you want to bounce out your mix and master in a separate project. That's so that you're not like tempted to adjust the mix or anything while mastering. It's to think of it as two separate jobs. So boom, you've done your mix, bounce out, do your master, and then you're not changing your mix and getting distracted and overthinking it. However, you can call it bad habits or anything like that. I've always just mastered in the project. It doesn't make an awful lot of difference to me personally, but a lot of people will tell you that. So yeah, you can try that if you want. If it works for you, it works. But for me personally, it doesn't bother me too much just doing it in the project. And also, again, with doing it in the project, reason being is I might bounce it out and then I might hear just something very little, like some kicks are missing, or I want to put this little bit in. So I can add maybe just that one kick or that one crash and not have to redo the whole bouncing it out, putting it in the master. Just makes it easy for me personally, but yeah, something to think about. Now, when it comes to mastering, you're obviously gonna put all your plugins on your master chain here. This is what mine looks like in Logic. Obviously, if you're using something different, it's gonna look a bit different, but yeah, you want to use the master channel. Something quick to mention is in the new Logic update, there is a mastering button. You can just click this and it masters it for you. However, would not recommend that. I've experimented with it. Not so great in my opinion, but hopefully it'll get better in the future and help. Now I'm just going to play you what the track's currently sounding like, so then you can hear, and then we're going to sort of turn it all off and work up to that point. Now hopefully you'll be able to hear it's nice and loud, everything's nice and balanced. You've got the boom from the kick, it's nice and subby, so you've got that warmth from the bass. You can hear the vocals nice and clear, the hats are nice and crisp, all that good stuff. Now we're going to turn everything off and give it a listen. Now you'll be able to hear there, it's still sounding pretty similar, obviously a lot quieter. You've got a little bit of that warmth taken out. It's a little bit less balanced and everything. It's not as squashed together, but the mix is still super clean. Everything's got its space. So yeah, like I say, mix going into the master, very important. Now, before you start doing any mastering, you want to find the loudest part of your song. So obviously, usually that's going to be the chorus or whatever. For me, it's this bit. And what you want to do is you want to click play. And you want to be looking at this level here. And what you want to be aiming for is you want it to be around 6 dB. Some people will say it wants to be 6.5. Some people even more. Some people will say it doesn't really matter as long as there's at least 2 dB. And what we're talking about here is your headroom. Now you want headroom when you're mastering to give it room to boost stuff. And yeah, you don't want to be going into your master at like 0 dB with the track already clipping and everything, because you're just not going to be able to do a good job. So you want to click play. And we're just looking for where this is peaking. So you can see straight away it's hit 5.7. Now you can see with mine, for the most part, it's at the high 5, so like 5.2, 5.3. Every now and again it spikes up a bit higher, and sometimes it's lower. But for the most part, it's around 5, which is fine. When you're playing it, if you keep clicking the number, it'll keep resetting. Because as you see, once you've clicked play and it gets to that loudest point, it's not going to move then from that. So yeah, you want to keep clicking it every now and again just to see where it's averaging out. Now the first thing I have in my master chain is the Pro Q3. This is an EQ by FabFilter. As you can see, we've got some stuff drawn in here. And like I say, guys, this is an EQ, so you are going to be able to use your stock EQ. It's just going to be missing some of the features that this has got. So let's just turn this on and hear what it's doing. Turn it off now. So as you've heard there, you'll already be able to hear a bit of that loudness coming through. That's why headroom's important, because if we were already, you know, just off 0 or whatever, we'd already be going past it. So it's important to have that headroom. Now let's talk about what's actually going on here. The first thing I'll do on my EQ, especially when it comes to the dance music stuff, is I will add a low cut. And when I'm adding this low cut, I'm doing it just for the sides. So that's a great thing about the FabFilter's EQ, is that you can select your stereo placement. So as you can see, this low cut's at the sides. That means we're not cutting the lows out of everything. We're just cutting it out the sides. So anything below 140 hertz, you can see the hertz here, is going to be in mono basically. Now when you're doing this from scratch, you obviously want to listen to where sounds nice, but anything up to like 200, 300 is going to be fine to put in mono. But I thought it sounded nice around here. You don't want to go too crazy with it and scoop it all the way up, because your track's going to start mono like all the way through, which is not what we want. We just want the bass, the lows in mono. Now with this being a dance track, we want that kick thumping, and we want the bass, you know, really nice and warm up there, making it, you know what I mean. This time just boosting it in the mids. Since it's low down, we don't want to be boosting the kick or the sub in the sides. So we've selected mid here with the stereo placement. Again, you are going to be able to do this with a normal EQ, but it's just going to have a bigger effect. So like, it might not be as clean if you're boosting the mids. It might not be as clean if you're boosting the sub throughout the whole track. It might start making it sound muddy or distorted or whatever. So yeah, let's just listen to what that's doing here. So yeah, as you can hear, that's just boosting all those lows. When you're doing this from scratch, you can move this round like this. So you can hear we're getting a lot subbier here. That sounds nice. But I ended up with it about here because I didn't want to make it too muddy. And then this EQ here is just to target the kick, so to make that kick nice and punchy. And as you can see on the EQ, it's spiking where the kick would be, super focused on the kick. Kicks are generally always around 110 to 120, so just something to bear in mind. Now, this one here, instead this time we're just boosting on the sides. And that's because I'm targeting the vocals with this. So like to get vocal presence, you want to be boosting around 800 hertz. So if you listen to your track and you're like, I want more vocals, I want to hear the vocals clearer, you want to boost around 800. Also, by doing it just in the sides, it's not going to make it overpowering. It's going to make your track feel wider and more full. And yeah, it's just nice. It's also boosting them pianos as well, which is nice to make it that bit wider as well. If I just turn this off and then I'll turn it back on and hopefully you'll be able to hear the difference. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. So yeah, it sounds super nice. Makes it so much wider and gives those vocals nice presence. I'll also do the same with these lower ones as well, just to show you. So I will turn the low cut off on the sides. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh. Do the same with these ones. I'll turn them both off, turn them both on together. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you want it that badly? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. And never let it go. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Now, if you haven't been doing this thing for a super long time, then you might not be able to hear a huge difference. But for me, after doing this a while, I can hear that the track sounds so much empty without these things turned on. And yeah, it just really makes a difference to me. Now, finally, on this EQ here, we're boosting just some of the tops, so like the hi-hats and the crisp bits like that. I boosted it in the middle and the sides here, just because it's hi-hats and, you know, like the rides and stuff like that. Sometimes it's nice for these higher bits just to be wider. It'll also boost a bit of like the highs from the piano or strings or anything like that. Just make it wider. And as you can hear, it's boosting a bit of the vocals in the mids and the sides as well again. I'll turn both of them things off. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you want... So hopefully there you'll be able to hear that it sounds much brighter and yeah, just nice to me. Now I know for the most part this EQ is boosting stuff other than the taking this sides out, but we can do this effect that we've done here but in reverse. So, you know, for example, say we think the vocals are too loud, too much presence, we just, you know, go to 800 hertz, we listen and we just go this, drag it down instead of up. Simple as. But that's where it becomes super important to practice at this and make sure you're listening and don't just do stuff because it's routine or whatever. Make sure you're actually listening. What does a track need? Do I want more vocals? Do I want more highs? Do I want more bass? Does there need to be less bass? Plenty to think about, but yeah, it comes with practice. Now, next thing I've got in my master chain is the multiband compressor from FabFilters. Now, if you're not familiar with a multiband compressor, you are familiar with normal compression, then this is basically just specific compression for each frequency. With the Pro MB FabFilter plugin, you can select these frequencies to be wherever you want. So as you see, we've got like band 1, band 3, so on, that you can make yourself. Most stores, from what I know, have their own multiband compressors. I know Logic does, but sometimes you're not going to be able to, you know, pick to have like 6 or 7 multibands or whatever. You might just have 4 to choose from. However, you're still going to be able to get a similar effect, but it's just not going to be as detailed as you might want it to be. Now, when I was learning about mastering and mixing and stuff like that for my own tunes, I watched a lot of videos and I never really saw anyone use a multiband compressor on their master. Maybe I was watching the wrong videos, or maybe it's just not something that a lot of people do. But for me personally, this was a game changer, using a multiband compressor on my master. It just made it sound so much cleaner. The mix sounded so much tighter. And yeah, it was kind of like, before when I was doing my masters, I felt like it was really lacking something that everyone else had, like that professional extra, you know, sound. But when I started using multiband compressors, I was like, right, like it sounds like, you know, the top tunes now to me. I'll be super real with you. For me, on every tune, I'll go on the FabFilter multiband compressor, I'll go to mastering, and I'll select one of these presets, and I'll see which one sounds best. 90% of the time, I'm picking this one, the Heavy Band 6 compressor, and all I'll do is I'll listen and I'll adjust it, but straight away, it's already going to sound loads better. Now, you might be like, how can you guarantee this on my track? But I've used it that many times that I can guarantee that it will sound better. You want to listen and, you know, you can visually see what things are doing here, where it's ducking. Or if you're not super clued up on this, you can pretty much just leave it and I can you know, pretty much say that it's going to sound better than it did before, and it's going to balance your track out more than it was. But yeah, let me play you that, and I'll turn it off and on like I did before. Start with it off.
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you want it that badly? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Then never let it go. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control.
Now, as you're going to hear on mine, it's ducking quite a lot of the bass, which might seem silly when I just boosted it on the EQ. But for me, everything has an effect. So like with the EQ, I boosted it in the mids, not on the sides and stuff like that. And then this is just going to balance it all out, squeeze it all together. So yeah, the method might seem silly, but for me, this is what works. Now, as for like kind of balancing out the mix, we've pretty much done that with the EQ and the multiband compression. I don't tend to need to do anything else. There is another compressor that I'm going to tell you about later. But for the most part, the balancing of the track is done in my eyes. Now, something that I think a lot of people think when it comes to mastering is it's just super like to the point. It's like there's a right and a wrong. But I don't think that. I think it's can be just as creative as the producing and the mixing side of it. And I think a lot of people are scared to like experiment and do interesting stuff or add stuff in the master. But it's definitely something you can do. You can change a whole track with a master, in my opinion, and the whole feel and sound to it. So something I like to do is add a bit of saturation with the Saturn II. And I just feel like this gives it a super warm sound. There's lots of presets on here and stuff for you to play about with, so you can kind of hear what it's doing. You don't have to use Saturn II. There's other stuff you can do, like use tape emulators, like what UAD have got. Let me just show you what that might look like. So you might want to use something like this, which again, it's going to give it a different sound. It's going to make your master sound different than if it didn't have it on. So yeah, just don't be scared to like put different interesting stuff on there. Just don't go crazy with it to the point where it's going to like sound super weird or whatever. But yeah, this stuff can be really important. I've just used this warm tube bass 4-band preset, and I've used this preset a lot. I'll use it on drum and bass tracks. Anything I want to add a bit of warmth, a bit of grit to, I'll add this. I just think it sounds really nice, and I'll play it with it off and I'll turn it on so you can hear.
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you want it that badly? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Then never let it go. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what?
So hopefully you can hear that makes a really nice difference. I think it makes it sound really nice. Adds a lot of warmth. Also boosts the volume up a bit. The Saturn, like the multiband compression, it has different filter sections, different frequency bands here. And you can adjust each one, the drive here. So like you could just boost more of the bass if you want. So let me show you that.
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you want it that badly? Oh, nah.
And eventually you heard it start to clip there, but yeah, you heard the bass boost. We could do the same with like the vocals if we wanted.
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh, nah, nah, yeah.
But yeah, I think Saturn II is a really good tool to use on the master, and you can experiment and find your own similar things. Now we're getting towards the end here of the master. Now the next thing we're going to do is add that final layer of compression, just to make sure it's really nice and balanced. It's not peaking in any bits, you know what I mean? We're not getting any mad spikes, which we shouldn't be anyway if his mix is good. But yeah, you're still going to want to do this either way. This is a free compressor by Analog Obsession, my bad. And I had a Buster SE compressor, but yeah, free anyway. I use this on every one of my masters. Hopefully you know how a compressor works, but basically when it gets to a certain dB, it's going to duck, and we can decide what that dB is by the threshold and how much it's going to duck with the ratio. Now the attack is going to be how quick it happens. So I always have it set to 3 milliseconds. I think it's 3 milliseconds this means, off 3 ms, I'm guessing. But yeah, I always have it set to 3. You want to avoid when you're doing this stuff just looking at numbers. Try listen to the attack to see what sounds nice, but 3. If you're unsure, just use 3. Trust me on it. Release is basically how quick it sort of stops compressing. So if you had a longer release, it'd just hold it. Once it hits the threshold, it's just going to hold it for as long as you release. If you've got a quick release, it's going to be like duck and then up. If it hits the threshold and you've got a long release, it's going to go down and then come up slower. If that makes sense, I hope it does. But for this, what we're going to be looking for is about 3 dB of compression. So we just want it under 4 or touching 4 thereabouts. Depending on how aggressive your tune is or your mix or whatever, it might peak a bit more above 4 every now and again, depending on what's going on, like if it's a drum and bass track that's going hard. But yeah, general rule is get it around 4 for me.
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you want it that badly? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. And never let it go. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel?
Now with mine, when I turn it on, you can hear it gets a little bit quieter. That's when you can use this makeup here, which basically is going to be boosting the sound coming out. So if we listen to a track with it off,
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what?
and then we turn it on,
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you?
we can use the makeup to get it back to where it originally was.
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing.
So now if we turn it off
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel?
and then turn it back on,
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling?
actually push it a little bit too much there, but yeah, that means that it's not going to be taking away that volume. If you're using the compression, if you use the makeup knob here, it's going to keep it the same. Now the final thing in my master chain is a limiter. Now I'm using FabFilter limiter. Your DAW will have a limiter, Logic has a limiter, Ableton will have a limiter. An alternate to a limiter could be a clipper, but personally I think you want to be using a limiter. I'd definitely recommend the FabFilters limiter. A great thing about the FabFilters one is this here, which is measuring your LUFs. LUF stands for loudness units full scale. Not something that I think matters, but basically we're measuring how loud it is. Now you might think, well, I can hear how loud something is, but sometimes things might sound louder than they are, which is why we use LUFs to know basically how loud it is. The same as like if you're going to put up a picture or, you know, you're going to cut a block of wood or something, you would measure it up first, because if not, you might cut it to where it looks right and think, you know, yeah, bang on, and then you go to put the picture up and it's dead wonky, or you've cut the piece of wood too short. Don't know why I've come up with that analogy, but yeah, basically I'm trying to tell you, don't just listen to it, it is important to measure it as well. Now you can change what sort of LUFs you're measuring. Short term is how it sounds. I'm not even sure what this means, but the one that's important that I know of is the integrated LUFs. That's what we want to be looking at. If you don't have the FabFilters limiter, you can download a LUFs plugin that is free, and it's what I used to use before I had the FabFilters limiter, and it's this. It's called Ulean Loudness Meter 2. You can even see it says free there, but this does the same thing. It's got the integrated LUFs there. So yeah, get this if you haven't got the limiter and you haven't got any other LUFs limiter. That's a free one there that works just fine. And yeah, I've used it for a while. Now, if you're not sure what a limiter does, it basically catches the loudest peak of the audio and it'll like press it. It's quite commonly known as brick wall compression, so it prevents it from sort of exceeding a certain point. That point depends what you've got it set as on your limiter. So for me, I have it set here to 0.03. You might be thinking, why have you not just got it at 000? People say that it can still clip if it's set to 000. Have I ever tried this? No, I've just listened and set it to 0.03 because it's a minute difference. You can have it set to 0.02 or 0.01, but the person who taught me to master has it set to that, so that's what I have it as, and I've never had any problems. So yeah, I just go for that. Now I'm going to turn the limiter on just so then you can see where the LUFs are at.
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you want it?
Now, as you can see, I've got my LUFs peaking at about 8.8 here. This has a similar reset function to like I showed you with clicking the numbers earlier on the master channel. So when you're playing it, you can keep clicking this reset button if you like, and it'll make the numbers reset basically. When you open your limiter at first, this here, the gain, is going to be at 0. What we're looking to do is we're just looking to push this gain up until it sounds nice and loud. And we're getting our LUFS about between 8 and 9. Now, some of you may or may not hear stories of, like Spotify or YouTube or anything like that compressing your audio, which is true. It does happen. So sometimes people have messaged me about their tracks like, will you do a version for Spotify? Will you do a version for YouTube? Will you do a version for SoundCloud? All these different versions, because they've heard that each platform compresses it differently depending on the LUFS. I believe Spotify is around 14. This does not mean that you want to master to 14 LUFS. Just master higher than that and let it just compress the audio. Unfortunately, that's just the world we live in. Some drum and bass people I've heard master their tracks to like 2 LUFS, which is like insanely loud. But yeah, if you don't trust me on this, you can go on your Spotify and go into the settings. And when you're in your settings, you want to scroll down to this normalize bit here in audio quality. Now, what this bit is that's where it is actually compressing it to the 14 LUFS. If you turn that off, you're going to be able to hear the original masters. So as the artist uploaded them and as he intended them to be listened to. I have mine off, and I recommend that you have yours off, because you're going to get to experience what it was actually like when they bounced it rather than with Spotify compressing it. Unfortunately, I don't know if other platforms have this, but yeah, Spotify certainly does. And this can be a super great way for referencing how loud your mix is versus another song. So say you've got a D&B tune, just put a D&B playlist on, make sure you've got the normalize function turned off, and you can hear how loud everything is compared to yours. And that goes to be said about all of these things. I definitely recommend just using references so you can hear how things are meant to sound. Reference your bass, reference your top end, etc. But yeah, enough said about that. Let's just boost this gain up until we get to the point where it's 8 to 9. Why do I do 8 to 9? It's just always what I've learned. It's what I was taught, and it's what works for me. You might find something different for you. But yeah, like I say, I'm aiming to show you a foolproof way that works for everything, that's going to make sure your tracks are always nice and loud. And for me, between 8 and 9 has always worked. So yeah, that's what I'm telling you.
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you want?
Now, as you can see, it's not going at like super crazy, but we want to make sure we keep hitting this reset button because it might be different.
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control.
This is because the integrated thing is basically the average, so we don't want to just click play, boost it to where it starts saying 8, because it's going to be taking into consideration how quiet it was before. So yeah, make sure you keep hitting reset.
Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you want it that badly? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. And never let it go. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling?
And there you go, you can see we're around 8.5 for the most part. It is also important, again, to adjust your attack and release. If you like, you can copy it to how I have it here. So there you can see the attack number and you can see the release number. That's going to sound good, and also the look ahead. If you set it like that, then it's going to sound good. I just have the transients to 0 and this to 0. And yeah, if you use that, then that's going to sound good. Do try to listen to what you're actually doing, as it can make a difference. Oversampling here, I set mine to 32 when I bounce it out. It just makes it sound better. The higher you set this, it just tends to make it sound better. You can master it with it down here if your like laptop or whatever can't handle it being like this when it's playing. And then when you've set your limiter, you can just turn this on and bounce it and listen to it after. Some people like it, some people don't. You can decide that for yourself. The style here, I've experimented with these. I don't find it makes a huge difference, but I just leave mine on all round and adjust this myself. But yeah, like I say, guys, there's no set rules. You can do whatever works for yourself and your music. Like I say, don't just think master's a yes or no thing or a right or wrong. You can get creative with it as well, so try different things, and yeah.
'Cause baby, I'm losing control. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you feel what I'm feeling? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. 'Cause baby, I'm losing control. Oh, nah, nah, yeah. Do you want it that badly? Oh, nah, nah, yeah. And never let it go.
So there you go, that's how I master, and I hope that this method works for you as well. If you don't want to master your tracks yourself and you just want me to do it, then hit me up on Instagram, just send me the message mastering and I'll see what I can do. also attach your song, or you can email me your song and just put the subject as mastering. I'll put my email there if you want me to work on your song with you. Any questions, feel free to comment them. Don't forget to hit a like if you found this video helpful, and hit the subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you for watching.